So I saw this post, I think it was on LinkedIn the other day. And in the post, this person was arguing about how people who say when you see an opportunity in SAM, it's too late. They were saying that's just all wrong. I get where they're coming from, but it's not all wrong and it's not all right. But the idea is that if you see an opportunity in SAM, if it's manufacturing and products, it's never too late. It's fine. Just go after it, right? There's no sales involved. It's just quoting and bidding. But if you see an opportunity in SAM and you respond to it and it's service-based, whether it's construction or professional services, IT services, what we're saying when we say that if you see it in SAM, it's too late, it's not really that it's too late, because I personally have gone after things I've seen in SAM. What we're saying is if you get engaged earlier in the life cycle, if you hear about it before it gets to SAM, then you increase your chances of winning. And I would submit that the person who said that thing the other day when I was reading it, plus anybody who ever says, of course you can find things at SAM and go after it, I bet you all those people would also say, but if you can hear about an opportunity earlier, that's even better, right? And so I'm one of those people that says that it's not the end of the world if you see it in SAM, respond. I'm just saying it's not good practice. It's better practice to engage 6 to 12 months earlier with your customer and know what's going to hit SAM. And so as we go forward, that's what I want to be talking about as it relates to capture, because that fits in, right? And one of my rules, though, is if all you do is find opportunities, and I'm talking to the service side, right? Not product side, because again, there's not a lot of engagement with the customer. But on the services side, professional services, IT, construction, et cetera, if all you do is find opportunities and then bid on them, then without doing any kind of capture, then I would submit you are limiting your chances to win. And I want you to be able to win more contracts. Obviously, that's what we're going to be talking about today, which is why I titled the training that. And so let's get talking about some proven capture steps you can use to win more federal contracts. These are all just standard things that I do day to day with my customers, with my last company, and I just constantly refine it. But basically, it's making sure that you're treating capture like a project instead of just on the fly. So I'm going to break up today's training into 4 sections. The first thing is I want to talk about capture's place in the federal sales lifecycle. Understanding the entire cycle is really important, because sales isn't just transactional in federal government contracting. It is solution selling. You are engaging. And so let's talk about the sales lifecycle. The next thing I want to talk about is just really quickly show you a sales pipeline and understand that this is where capture is. Capture lives in the sales pipeline. Third thing I want to cover down on, and the fourth thing is capture tasks. So I want to talk about the initial tasks that I do when I get an opportunity coming into the pipeline. And then as I get those done and the opportunity is maturing through my sales pipeline or moving through the pipeline, there's a second set of capture tasks I do. And so I want to give you specific ones. And so today I'm going to give you 7 initial and 7 second tier. These are not all of them, but if you weren't doing a lot of them before, these are ones that are the easiest and really the most helpful to get started. So that's what we're going to cover down on today. If you don't know who I am, my name is 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗛𝗕𝗏. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's certainly what I want for your pipeline. I want you to have predictable results coming out of your pipeline. That's what leadership looks for. That's how we're able to identify the revenue that we'll get in 24, in 2025, 2026, is when we have a reliable pipeline that gives us predictable, repeatable results. Really quick, if you haven't subscribed to the Government Contracting Success newsletter, subscribe to it. I love putting it out because it always has helpful information for you. I put a replay of a training into the newsletter article yesterday and broke down the 9 notice types that are in SAM so that you can understand which ones are the most important, right? There's 3, I think 4 maybe. I got it mixed up. I think it's 3 that are the high value to you, 2 that are medium value, and 3 or 4 that are low value. And so if you go into the newsletter article, you see that. Well, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll get a lot of good content like that's designed to help you move forward into the agencies and into the federal market in a successful way. Last thing is, please register for training. We have a lot of people who register for training. It's a very simple way to say thank you to us. But when you do that, it allows us to be able to push the notice out to more people so that we build this community for you. Yesterday, we had in 3 federal buyer representatives, right? I call them buyers, right? They're at whatever role they're in. 3 of those were in. We've had larges come in, and we've had many, many small businesses like you that like to work together. But let's keep putting the word out there. There's 300,000 small businesses in the federal space, and we haven't even begun to tap that to build the community for you. And I really want that to happen for you. So registering for training is one simple way you can do that. Okay, so let's begin here with Capture's place in the federal sales lifecycle. I like to say that federal sales has 3 components to it. And actually, I modified the 3rd one. I'm going to play around for a while and see if I really like that. But basically, federal sales includes business development, capture, and response. What I used to call proposal, but it's not always a proposal. So I call it response. BD, capture, and response. So business development is the early stages. It's where you understand an agency better than they understand themselves, is what I like to say. You find and build strategic relationships within an agency, both with government personnel, government buyers in the contracting shop, program shop, et cetera, as well as industry winners, companies that are winning prime contracts within their your target agency. So you're building those strategic relationships. And then business development's ultimate goal, right, is to find slam dunk opportunities that you can win. So that's it, business development. Understand an agency, build relationships, find opportunities. The next stage, as you find opportunities, you put them into your pipeline, is capture. And capture is about 3 things, right? Shaping the scope of work, shaping the acquisition approach, and increasing the PWin. So shaping the scope of work is basically working with the program office to talk to them about what's in the performance work statement, the statement of objectives, et cetera. And again, the earlier you get in, the more chance you can influence that. Shaping the acquisition approach. This is getting something to go to a particular contract vehicle or a woman-owned set-aside, et cetera. I was talking with somebody today about, well, how do you beat out those larger small businesses? For example, 8A set-asides, there's some companies that are really, really big that are able to go after 8As. I'm like, well, get in there and try to shape the acquisition approach around the NAICS code. If you can get the contracting officer to see the value of using a NAICS code that has a lower dollar threshold, like let's say 7 million or 15 million, whatever, right? If you can lower that threshold, that NAICS code that has a lower dollar threshold, then you're able to push out your competition a little bit. And that's examples of shaping the acquisition approach. We'll talk, I've done a ton of training about this, by the way. So make sure you go check out my previous trainings where you can see where I dive into how do you do acquisition approach shaping. And then the last one is increase the PWin. This is when you start thinking about solutioning, your ability to really understand what the government wants in that requirement, and building your team out and figuring out where your weaknesses are, shoring it up with teammates, et cetera. And so capture is about shape the scope of work, shape the acquisition approach, and increase the PWin. That's what you're doing during capture, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The last part of the federal sales lifecycle is the response. You have to get something back to the government. And so here we're talking about a quote or a bid. And so for the most part, this is product-based. Sometimes it could be service-based, but in simplified acquisition, so under 250,000, the lower it is, the less they might ask of you. I actually did that in my last company where we did some SharePoint development, but it was like 100,000. They didn't ask for a lot from us. They basically asked for a quote, and we just said we would build a SharePoint site with this bullet, this bullet, and this bullet. And that was our entire response, right? And so that response type was a quote or a bid. It pretty much is just focused on the price and the quantity. But the second response type is proposal. So when you think about an RFP dropping, a request for a proposal, the proposal is looking for a lot more. Tell us your tactical approach, your management approach. How are you doing staffing? What's your pricing and your past performance? All these different things. A solid proposal is a response that's clear, compliant, compelling, and convincing. What I mean by clear, hopefully, is clear. It's this idea that anybody can read it and it makes sense to them. They're like, okay, I'm following along. It's clear. You're not using heavy, detailed jargon. You're using just enough jargon to show that you know what you're talking about, but you're not, going into a PhD level of writing that's hard to understand. It's not clear to the majority of people who are going to read your response. The second thing, compliant, is just all those shall statements, let's say. Third one is compelling. You want to excite them about your proposal, your approach to their need. This is compelling, but they can't buy on compelling. They can get excited about it, but then they're like, well, convince me this is the right one, right? They want to be convinced, and that's where you wrap up with a convincing part of your proposal. And in convincing, we're talking about just providing proof of what you just said. If I say I can wow you in this way and this way, well, then I can provide a couple of stories of how I wowed somebody else, not just in my past performance sections, but just throughout my narrative. And so a proposal is much more involved response, but responses are quotes and full proposals. So as you go forward, a lot of us kind of do business development to a degree and response, but we skip the capture phase. We skip this whole time when we could shape the opportunity in a way that is most likely for us to win or increase our likelihood of winning just by having conversations with other government contractors, by having conversations with contracting acquisition personnel, contracting officer, et cetera, or having conversations with the program office to talk to them. Even if we can't influence them, we can understand them more. And capture is where all that happens on each individual opportunity. And that's what I really want to get you thinking about and doing. So let's talk about where capture happens. It obviously happens through the pipeline. And what I wanted to just show here, and the reason I'm showing this is because I'm going to give you 2 sets of tasks. And these just happen to be like when an opportunity comes into my pipeline, I'm going to do this set and this set so that I can move that opportunity forward following a clear criteria, right? And so what I have here is a typical pipeline. This is certainly the pipeline I like to follow, is I bring opportunities in that are unqualified. Really quickly, let me tell you what I mean by unqualified. I'm working with a customer right now, and so this is actually a one-on-one customer, not in our workshop. And in this customer, we're helping them with the pipeline. We're really driving forward on growth, significant growth. And so we looked at 1,000 opportunities. And when I look at things, I don't like my tools to filter things out. I like to see all the data, and my eyes and my mind will filter things out as I go through. It takes a little bit longer, but then I don't miss anything that might go through. So an example is if I sit there and say, we do software development, if I browse it, I see everything and something might catch my eye. But if I don't browse it, then I only see things that have the word software development in it. But when I browse, not only will I see things that are software development, but maybe they weren't labeled that way, but I also see things that this company over here could probably do. And maybe we could team, and oh, here's another one, right? I begin to see more stuff related to the very customer I'm trying to target or the agency I'm trying to target when I browse. So anyways, when I'm looking at an opportunity, before I get to the pipeline, and you'd go watch yesterday's training where I provide tips on how I triage a lot of opportunities. But basically, we took 1,000 opportunities, and through our triaging process, we then had 38 opportunities. And then this morning, we went at it again, and we took those 38, went down to 23. And our goal is those 23 probably getting down to 15 slam dunk opportunities. These opportunities represent well over $1 billion in value that's going into their pipeline. We are going to be able to hit the sales goals that they have because we're putting opportunities in. Well, when I get it down to those 23 or even those 15 opportunities, that's when I put it into my pipeline, because before then I haven't done anything except for looked at some basic descriptions I'm seeing, but I haven't really done a lot of work that is specific to that opportunity. So now I put it into my pipeline, and I might say this later in one of my slides, but you always want to get opportunities into your pipeline that you're going to work on. So that way you can learn, why are you abandoning it once you put it in, right? That's great lessons learned. So it helps you really find better and better opportunities, and you'll eventually end up abandoning less and less that are in your pipeline. So I put it into an unqualified. And then it's starting to go through the journey. My point is, at every stage, there's something called a gate, right? And if you've been at this for a while, you know what I'm talking about. But you have a gate. The whole point of a gate is a bid, no bid, and a review point. Do we want to sit there and move this forward in the sales pipeline? If we do move it forward, 2 things happen. It represents an additional investment the company will be spending on this opportunity. It may be something really, really minor, like a few hours, or it might be millions of dollars if you're a big, big company. But either way, as you move forward, you're committing to be doing more and harder work on that opportunity, right? Eventually, you're going to have to get to solutioning, where you're engaging somebody in your company who knows what they're doing on that, so you can write to it. But as you go through each gate, oh, the other thing is, as an opportunity moves farther to the right in the pipeline from gate 0 to gate 3, for example, the ability for leadership to count on that opportunity increases. We weight the value in the pipeline, but basically what it means is now I can start predicting the sales and predicting the revenue of out years, because it is moving through these stages 1 through 7. And the farther to the right, the more I can count on it. But anyways, each gate 1, 2, 3, they all have specific criteria. And so when I work with customers and I put the pipeline in place, I put strong criteria that says it cannot pass through gate 1. So from qualified to pursue, it can't pass through unless it meets this criteria. And that criteria is very well defined. And so in a minute, I'm going to show you some of the data that I gather to be able to meet that criteria and move it forward. But so it's the same thing on each one of these gates. As you move an opportunity forward, don't just let it happen accidentally. Hold yourself accountable and your team accountable to defining what criteria is necessary in order to move that opportunity forward. This is the whole idea behind bidding and no bidding. Really, all that means is look at an opportunity and go, should we still be working even one more minute on it? Yes or no, right? Do we want to? Should we? All right, so think about capture. It all fits in here. So if I have an opportunity, not if, right? When I have an opportunity, I put it in my pipeline. This is the first thing I'm going to be doing. These first steps, 7 steps. And they might seem basic, but I want to walk you through the rationale of why they're important to me. I don't use a PowerPoint slide to look at opportunities for capture management plans. I just think that's a complete waste of time for salespeople to have to fill out an administrative thing. But instead, I have a pipeline that the form that I use for the opportunity, as you come down the form, the fields get harder and harder. The fields get more and more valuable to the opportunity and our chance for increase in the PWin, et cetera. It gives, I'm guiding people on how to do capture by just filling out this form of the opportunity. And to start with, give me the opportunity title. Congratulations, it's in the pipeline, you've started capture, right? But then as you move forward, they get harder and harder. So in this particular case, this is a first set of tasks that I'm trying to do. And so I have here department, agency, and program office. This is really important. You want to understand how something's broken down. So an example is yesterday I was working with, literally this week, so I'm still working on it today, an opportunity with one of my customers. It's at the Department of Veterans Affairs. It's at the Veteran Health Administration. So that's their agency. They're broken up into 3 components. And then the program office is Vision 21, I think, which is the VA Integrated Service Network. It's a group of hospitals. But now I start moving it forward. When I start shaping my data and doing reports, it's very easy to see. I only use acronyms in here. I have a comment field that's date timestamped that I can put full names. But here I'm using acronyms because then I'm able to have a consolidated name. Number 1 is the program office. You need to know who the program office is or what the program office is, because downstream in the capture lifecycle or sales lifecycle, we're going to be going into the program office. We want to go find people. So you have to know that piece of information. If I have salespeople on my team and they don't know this, I'm like, well, you don't know anything about the opportunity. Yeah, we have this. I'm like, no, you've got something out of GovWin or off the forecast, but you haven't gone out and figured out anything about this if you don't know the program office. The second office, and this is a really important one, is the contract office. This is a specific field that I track. Tell me the contract office. Yes, sometimes the contract office is the same as the agency that's being listed. Like sometimes at Department of Commerce, it might be the Office of Secretary, and the contracting office might be that. But other times in the Department of Commerce, it might be the Bureau of Economic Development or Administration or something like that. But another office like the Census or NIST might be the contracting shop for that opportunity. It's important to know that because when you shape opportunities, the program office is where you shape the scope. The contracting office is where you shape the acquisition. I need to know both of those. Number 3, the old solicitation number, right? For most opportunities, they're recompetes. It's great if we have a new opportunity, but for most of them, they're recompetes. And so we need to have that old solicitation number, which tells us we've got basic information so we can go back and find old PWSs and start looking at an opportunity before the new performance work statement comes out. Number 4, this is huge. It's another one that is a deal breaker for me when I do gate reviews. If you don't have multiple people in the field, which allows multiple people, if you don't have multiple people in the opportunity point of contact, POC field, then you don't get to move forward in my gate, right? And the point is, in there, I want every single time, I want the small business specialist listed. I want the SBA PCR listed. I want the contracting officer and specialist listed. I want anybody you can think of from the program office. If you're talking to any teaming people, I want them in there. Anybody related to this opportunity, this is my chance to look in there and say, that field, the more names you have, the more confident I feel without even seeing anything else. The more I go, okay, at least you've figured out who these people are. Now the next step is to talk to them, right? But we want to be able to do it. You can go watch other training I do on why I want the SBA PCR or the small business specialist. But one of the things you need to know is what you do in practice is what you do in real life. This is why what you do every single time will become a habit. If you only get the small business professional or the PCR whenever you think it might be necessary, then you're really never going to do a good job at it. But if you demand it every single time, that's process. That's following a documented, proven process that can be repeatable across the board for all your opportunities in your pipeline. All right, number 5, pretty straightforward one, but if this is a recompete, go find the incumbent. I want to know who that is. I want us to make sure we know who it is so then we can chase them down. We can also go see what else they're winning, because if we like this one, we might like 5 other contracts they have and we can pursue those too. Number 6, core competency alignment. This is a big one for me. In the pipeline, you should only have slam dunk opportunities. It should not be this whole bunch of opportunities that are just randomly thrown in there. And so I have a field that is a drop down with my customers or my company, whatever it is, our core competency. Let's say, and this is kind of broad, but let's say you do data, cloud, and cyber. Well, every opportunity that's in there needs to align to one of those. So it can't be this huge list. One of my customers does administrative support and program management, and they do American Sign Language, right? And they do water management. Whatever opportunities go in, and they have a different vertical there, right? But whatever opportunity goes in, they need to choose one of those. If not, that's a flag to us on why is that opportunity in there. And the last one is RFP drop date. You may not move out of unqualified until you have an estimated drop date. I'm okay with an estimated drop date because the government gives us an estimated drop date. But we need to have a general idea of when that opportunity is dropping, because then it helps us prioritize against opportunities that have earlier RFP dates. It also allows us to put the word out to our internal staff if we're a bigger company that, hey, we've got opportunities expected to come down in 3 months and 6 months, et cetera. When we start looking at dashboard reports, which are pretty easy to put in place, when we start looking at those, we can see, hey, you know what? We've got a whole quarter here with no RFPs dropping. Let's go find opportunities that can fit in. Okay, so tier 2 tasks. These, so once I get those done, as I move forward, I'm continuing. Now I want to know, is this a recompete or a new opportunity, right? So opportunity type. Number 2, set aside. I want to see if the government's decided or whether it's still TBD. If it's to be determined, I can go in there and try to push it. If it's an SDVO and I'm not, I can determine whether we abandon it or whether we want to switch our position to sub and go find a prime, right? Number 3, what contract vehicles it planned to be on? What do we think it's going to be on? What was it last time, et cetera? Work share is a really important one. In the pipeline that I manage, work share allows us to say, here's a $10 million contract. Our work share is 10%. So when I have automated fields that do the revenue projection, it tells us our portion of the 10 million is only 1 million. So when we look at a total pipeline value, we're not seeing 10 million. We're only seeing 1 million added to our pipeline. So work share is a really important thing. It also means you're having a conversation with the prime that says, hey, are we getting 10%, 50%? Contract length in months, don't use years, but this is really important because then when you start planning out revenue and you're looking at it in your dashboard, you can see it starting in September and it's going to go all the way through into the middle of a 6th year because it's crossing years or something. It's important to see that. It lets other people in your company track on that. Total contract value. Again, that goes back to that $10 million thing. Put that in. And then when you have work share number 4 in there, if you're the prime, it's 100% work share, which means the annual revenue that your company is going to be able to count on is 100% of that total contract value divided by the contract length in months. And I know I'm doing math. You got all sorts of training. If you really care about capture and you want to deep dive into it or the pipeline, I have a ton of training, almost 500 trainings in the last 2 years that you can go explore these. But this idea of total contract value together with the work share, helps your company predict how much revenue should we be expecting. And the last one is how many FTEs should we be expecting? First off, it's helpful when you write the response. And second, it's helpful for the staffing and recruiting portion of your company to know, oh, we're going to have to hire up 50 people or 5 people or 1 person. All right, so that's the second tier set of tasks. As you do these, you've learned more and you move forward. And I have these groups of tasks that I just keep moving forward. But we're running out of time, and I want you to remember a few things as you move forward. First thing is, if you're in the habit of doing this, or if people in your company are, stop this drag and drop. Some people go into, they think it's great to have a connection to GovWin, for example, or SAM, and they just pull in all that data. That is bad sales practice. What you want to do is go to those sources, look at the opportunities there, and pick one up at a time and bring it home. But don't sit there and auto ingest all these opportunities. That's just some developer who created features that actually is bad for our sales, because then we end up having too many opportunities in our pipeline to actually capture or move any forward. The second thing is get all the ops that you do touch into the pipeline. And I said this before, you want to make sure anybody in your team, if they're going to do anything beyond looking at the title and basic description, then that should be in the pipeline so they could get credit for working on it. But you as a company can learn from that activity and get better and better at identifying opportunities before they come in your pipeline. So make sure all opportunities are in your pipeline and just use an abandoned field, because eventually you want to abandon less and less, but you need to have them in to get better. And the last one is get RFP dates for all opportunities in your pipeline. They need to be able to be racked and stacked. If you don't have an estimated RFP date, throw the opportunity away. It means you're not even really tracking it. But if you have RFP dates, now you can start seeing, are we going to be able to go after these in a reasonable amount of time with the sources we have? All right, so I'm out of time. If you're interested in working with me and my team, my company, go check out govconchamber.com. If you're interested in success, then remember one thing. Government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.